First of all, let me thanks to Dóra Halasi for inviting me to make a small statement on the occasion of Júlia Klaniczay's 70th birthday. So let me start off with a quotation from the famous 2013 Artpool book, edited by Júlia Klaniczay and György Kalantai. And this is from the foreword of Christine Stiles. So, quote, Kalantai saved his fate in no small measure with and because of Júlia Klaniczay. She stood with him not as a comrade, but as a lover, and together they launched Artpool in 1979. Love here must be understood both as a bond and as the impetus of a political concept, the proposition Michael Hart and Antonio Negri make in their book Multitude, where they insist that the force of love is capable of demonstrating the constituent power of the multitude, whose political quotient is comprised of radical differences as well as singularities that can never be synthesized in an identity. The idea of a politics of love able to support unity within diversity owes an unspoken debt to Václav Havel's extensive 1986 meditation on the power of the powerless, the phrase Havel used to describe how small communities bound together by shared tribulations give rise to some special, humanly meaningful political relationships and ties. Havel further observed that such efforts to realize a form of living within the truth have the capacity to renew a feeling of higher responsibility in an apathetic society and represent some kind of rudimentary moral reconstitution. Kalantai and Klaniczay built just such a society of the powerless through living within and expanding the power of the multiple truths of art. End of quote. And basically I could continue reading this as the way how Stiles describes the concept of love is so broad and also so talking and expressive that I couldn't have found a more characteristic interpretation of what Júlia Klaniczay and György Kalantai did with their Artpool project and anything that was connected to that project. So why I also chose this citation is that I actually met Júlia Klaniczay and also Kalantai during this very intense phase of preparing the Artpool book. So Artpool, the experimental art archive of East Central Europe. And I met them 2012, and this intense preparation phase of the book and the making of the book itself was not always without stress, but I was impressed with the ways how Klaniczay made a lot of space and created a place of opportunity to Kalaniczay's ideas and creative concepts to unfold. So with her precision, care, and also with the rigor she edited this particular book made me even more immersed into what Artpool actually was and hopefully still is. And this is, I believe, editing, and that is one of her very expressive faces. This is why I would like to show to you an image that is an image I think many times cited, and the way how I imagine Júlia Klaniczay working even when I don't see her. And this is the image of her office when she is editing the first issue of Artpool letter / actual letter / an international exchange program in 2 dimensions that for me is so typical to what she does and what comes out at the end as a result of her work. And when I was thinking of what I could say just to celebrate her, was to put together a couple of ideas of what terms can describe her work, what can describe her as a professional, yet someone who is in a loving relationship with an artist and with whom they are head of an institution. So I came up with not a lot, but a couple of roles I think she takes on. One of them is that of the co-head of the institution. Although she many times is in the background, but without her, this couldn't be a working institution. She is also the managing director of Artpool. Without her organizational skills, without her doing administration, without her traveling, without her acquiring, doing much of the documentation, without her coordinating the people who worked or work currently at Artpool, it wouldn't be possible. So the institution wouldn't be the same. She is also, in her role of a managing director and a co-head, she is also a great multilingual communicator. She inspired me in her role of speaking multiple languages, including English, French, Italian, in looking into the important personalities in East Central Europe in the era of the Cold War, on how they actually expanded their scope of knowledge, how they got in touch with others. And this was based on language. So she was also in this a great inspiration to me. And everything out of this couple of roles I have just put on the slide for you is connected with each other. So she is not only that editor you saw in a small office, but also she is stepping out, not only working in the background, but also doing the networking work, and it's in the even part of this term the work that she does is going out there, looking for institutional contact, looking for people who could carry on the spirit of Artpool everywhere basically they go. So she has got these receptors everywhere, and I think does an excellent job, or did many decades ago an excellent job in liaison with Klaniczay's contact art. So a lot of male artwork going on in making Artpool what it is right now, in connecting it to so many artists, other art-based archives, but also academic institutions. Júlia Klaniczay is for me also a diplomat and an ambassador of Artpool in her role of a networker, of really a promoter of the spirit of Artpool, of the open and active archive concept. So basically wherever she goes, I think it is always on her mind on how to connect the people and institutions, semi-institutions, with her own Artpool. Also, no matter how uncomfortable she was, as she told me, with involvements in the creative processes and artistic work of Klaniczay, she often became a co-creator of performances like we have seen in the 1980s, let's say, and that were even years later reenacted. So she took a part, often as an assistant, but even more often, I believe, as someone who also gave one or the other idea to the artists. And what also connects me with Artpool is, I think, that Klaniczay has a very sensitive radar, if I can use that word, to detect academic and archivist researcher talent. And she's very good in recognizing that talent, involving people in the work of Artpool, I believe, really making them feel enthusiastic about it. And what is important is that she helps those people to expand their own field of knowledge through being part of Artpool's work and making it even more well known in art history or even beyond in curatorial work. But also, I think that this connection to Artpool should, in her understanding, but also naturally in the understanding of people who had their academic career step at Artpool, stayed there for a while, but then perhaps moved on, to keep a mutual loyalty with Artpool, with Klaniczay and with Klaniczay, and to recirculate knowledge production from Artpool, so the research that was done in Artpool, basically to bring it into a wider international academic or curatorial artistic field, but then to bring it back to Artpool. So it still echoes in my ears that anytime as a researcher connected to Artpool publishes something related to the institution or even to the more broader field of East Central European art starting off from the 1960s, then a copy of that particular publication should be sent or submitted to Artpool so that it has an access to everybody interested in it. So I think that being an ambassador or diplomat of the active archive concept means this as well, that Júlia Klaniczay helps us practice the open and active archive in a way that we circulate our knowledge back into the institution and really make it part of a living archive. So, what else I could say is that I believe that because of also this role of being an ambassador of Artpool, Júlia Klaniczay's whole skill set I have listed here, and of course the list could be expanded with many other roles she's taking on. I just selected a couple. So based on these really meticulous documentary work of networking, of holding people together, of these highly sophisticated managing skills, I believe it's thanks to her, although it really is overarching, almost massive giving she does, is that Artpool is internationally recognizable and visible to people who are interested in the art and culture of East Central Europe. Without her, I don't think that the institution would be one of the number one destinations for international researchers in the region. And finally, in a sense, I have to apologize because this just became a very personal statement, something that is perhaps very subjective, but the smaller it is, I think, the more it expresses the way how I think of Júlia Klaniczay as a fantastic and a unique female personality and real key guardian, let's say, of Hungarian art and culture. What might make her disappointed about this small stake is that it is not what she would expect from me as a researcher in terms of references and citations, but still the idea was to somehow transmit an important message, namely that Júlia Klaniczay is posing for György Galántai as an artist and a creator, of course, someone who she loves, but also she's posing for Artpool and the spirit of that institution. She was posing for it, she is posing for it, and she will always pose for both of them. So happy birthday to you, Júlia.